So I'm going to go through a few hands I played in the sit and go the other night. $1 sit and go, 9 players, top 3 got paid, first got 50%, second got 30%, and the third got 20%. I'm not going to go for every hand. There were in fact 101 hands, and it took about 40 minutes to play in its entirety. So this is only the second hand in the tournament, and you can see that we are sitting here with about 75 big blinds. I'm in the small blind with King of Spades, 7 of clubs, and you'll see that player 3 up here. And I would say the players do not move their position, but their numbers do change as people get knocked out. So we'll keep an eye on this player. He raises to 4 big blinds, and we all fold apart from player 1, who had called the in mid position here. So in response to the raise, he then goes all in, and you'll see this type of behavior where he can only really get called by a premium hand here, and it's all to win just about 5 and a bit big blinds. So it's no surprise when player 3 calls and the board runs out like this. And he went all in with ace 10 and was called by ace king, and player 1 is knocked out. Now, this might look like an excellent result for player 3, and of course it is. He doubles his stack. But it's also a good result for the remaining players, because the equity that this player had with the ace 10 is now spread not just with the player he was up against, but all the other players, as we're one nearer the money. Move on now, and I folded a series of hands, and we get to the next interesting hand here. The blinds have actually gone up, so I'm down to 46 big blinds, and sitting on the button. And there's a raise under the gun from player 8 here. And although we might write some of these players off as being very low stakes players, there's a number of quite good players around, and they are positionally aware. So until I see otherwise, when somebody raises under the gun like this, I kind of have to give them a bit of respect for having a hand. Player 1 actually goes in and 3-bets here, and slightly more than the 3 big blinds, but not much more than a min raise, really. Player 2 and 3 fold, and player 4 cold calls the 3-bet. So immediately I'm thinking that there's some strong hands around here. I'm getting out, obviously, and everybody else folds. We're back with player 8, who puts a 4-bet in, confirming that he actually has a very good hand. And if I was one of the other players now, I'd want a very good hand to continue with. Player 1 calls, and player 4 calls. I'm just going to show what cards I have, and you'll see that in the under the gun position, player 8 does in fact have an absolute premium with a pair of aces. This Queen Jack is just not good enough to be either 3-betting an under the gun raiser or calling the 4-bet. And similarly, the King 10 is not good enough to call the 3-bet. The pair of aces, according to this, is a 72% favourite to win, and in fact to probably knock out player 1. Let's see what happens. He bets the rest of the money on the flop and is called by the Queen Jack, and the King 10 calls as well, having made a pair. The Queen Jack has no more than an inside straight draw, so the pair of aces is bets the rest of his money and goes all in. And the Queen Jack has now actually made something and actually has a pair of queens to go with his inside straight draw. And the King 10 also calls as well. So things have gone a little bit crazy. We got 2 all-ins and the King 10. The last card does not change anything, and the pair of aces wins a very nice pot and knocks out player 1. Once again, very beneficial for all the people watching, because now another player has left the table and their equity is spread around all of us remaining players. Just a few hands later, and as you probably noticed, I actually haven't really played any hands, and in this case, I'm also a spectator. The player 3 decided to raise all in with his remaining chips. If you remember, he was the one who got beaten in the aces pot and has got 20 big blinds. I think this is still very speculative and unnecessary, really. He can wait for his chance with better cards than 2-8 of diamonds. But he takes his chance, goes all in under the gun. We all fold, and round in the small blind is ace 9, and he decides to take him on. You'll see people sort of lose their heads and do these all-in bets. Sometimes they do actually have good hands and other times not. This guy obviously assessed that ace 9 was probably going to be ahead of the range of player 3, and he calls him. Player 2 folds, gets out of the way, and the flop comes down with an ace and a 9 and sends player 3 out. So fairly quickly we have lost a third of the field, and this is something you don't see at the higher levels of sit and goes, generally speaking. But at the $1 sit and goes, people are gambling and ready to just buy into their next sit and go the minute they get knocked out. So now we come to the first big hand of my tournament. I get ace queen of hearts in the cut-off position. Player 1 limps in for 1. He is the one of the big stacks on the table, and player 2 folds, and it comes round to me with ace queen. I am coming in for a raise with this. I make it 3 big blinds. I really want to get heads up, and I get my wish with the other players who haven't seen me play a hand yet, giving me a lot of respect, which is good. And player 1 deciding to call and see a flop. Let's go to a flop. And the flop isn't great for me, but I do have at least backdoor flush draw possibilities here, and even vague wheel opportunities with my ace. But it's not a great flop. Player 1 checks to me, and I decide to make a continuation bet here of around about the half pot, and he calls. The next card comes down, still not giving me any help. I decide to have one more go here because I've still got 42 big blinds, and if he is just hanging on with some kind of draw or low pair, I might be able to get him to fold. I guess I'm trying to represent ace king here. Anyway, he checks to me and I bet 10 big blinds, and he calls again. So now I'm pretty much done with the hand. I don't think I'm going to bluff him off. I think he obviously has made a pair. He's very likely got a king, and I get an ace on the river. So he checks to me, and I decide to bet for value here. I bet a third pot. He kind of liked seeing the ace come, but he calls anyway, and he gets the bad news. So the ace queen was ahead on pre-flop, but then behind until the river. So it was a nice pot to win, and a 60 nearly 61 big blind pot, and certainly set me up for the rest of the tournament. So now we come to a hand that was a bit of a disaster for me, really, because as you'll find out, I made a very bad mouse click at the wrong time here. So I get dealt the ace king of spades, and I'm under the gun here, and I've shown the whole cards here, and as you can see, I have the superior hand to the other two players. I was torn between going all in with only 20 big blinds, as the stacks are getting quite short now, or making a raise to 2 big blinds. In the end, I pressed the wrong button and I folded. And I think it's an example of just being careful when you are using the mouse to take your time, set things up, and only press the decision button when you're absolutely sure about it. You'll see these players all play the hand. In fact, ace queen goes all in. He has a very short stack, and we see a three-way flop, and the run out. You'll see that the ace queen wins, a jack nine wins. Whether I would have got anything out of it is another matter. But at the time, I was just really annoyed with myself for missing out on picking up a few chips. But probably looking back on it now, it wasn't in the end a big mistake, but I think it could have been if these players had actually had more chips. Anyway, the lesson is, think before you press the mouse button.